Welcome back to our coffee break. Today I want to share with you a little history of myself. And I've shared this from time to time. In fact, I share it quite a lot. I share it in writing and other things, probably at least once every couple of years. And I may have already shared it with you last year, I don't remember. There is a point to the story, so bear with me. When I was in elementary school, I just walked across the street to the school. I mean, it was just right there. And so from kindergarten through 6th grade, I went through a lot of the classes with the same kids. They were all from my neighborhood. This was before busing. It was just a neighborhood school. I had a lot of friends, and we would be very active. We'd go out and ride our bikes. We'd go climb trees. We'd climb up on the roof of the house, and all kinds of weird stuff that kids do. And then when 7th grade started, I went to a junior high school. We didn't have middle schools then. A junior high school, and it was about 5 blocks away from the house. So I was walking to school. But now, for the first time, I was going to school with kids that didn't look like me. And that was a bit of a culture shock, I'll admit, for a first-time 7th grader. And then along about Christmas, the Christmas break, my dad had taken another job, and we moved from Richmond, Indiana to Marion, Indiana, about 3 hours away, in the middle of the winter. And so... Now keep in mind, this is my 7th grade self remembering these facts, okay? But we lived at the dead end of a road in a sort of an upper middle class neighborhood. And so my first day of school as in January in Indiana with somewhere close to a foot of snow on the ground, as I recall. It was the first time I had to ride a bus to school, and I was a little nervous about it. And so, I bundled up in my heavy winter coat. I'm sure it had a hood on it to keep the wind away from my ears. And in the north, if you never lived up north, you might not know, but in the north, when it snows like that, at least when in the 60s, we had some snow boots that we wore, so we would wear our regular shoes, and the snow boots went over our shoes, and they had metal clasps that closed. And as you would play outside or walk around outside, those clasps would get caked in with snow and ice, and they would get stuck, and you'd almost lose all the feeling in your fingers trying to get them undone. It was a blast. I loved it. Anyway, so first day of school. In the spring semester, I woke up, went down the street in the dark. Now remember, it's wintertime. It was dark. Walked down the street in the dark, in the snow, not uphill both ways, but it was in the snow, and stood at the end of the street. Now it was a dead end street, but it dead ended into a T at the other end. So it was just a little, probably, I don't know, less than a quarter of a mile. Walked down there in the dark, walked across the road to the other side, waited off the road in the snow, and I could see down to my left another group of kids at the other intersection. It was too far to walk, but I could hear them. I could see them standing there under the lights, so I knew there was a group of them. And the bus came along, stopped, picked all of them up, and I got ready. I make sure that I had all my stuff together, and I stood next to the road, and the bus comes down the road and drives right past me down to the other stop. And I didn't know what to do. And so I waited a few minutes trying to figure out what to do, and then I went back home. And I'm sure it was my mom. My dad was probably at work, but my mom, I'm sure, took me to school. The next day I went down, it happened again. Now, I don't know how many days this went on, not more than 2 or 3, until my mom finally had enough, I think. But I remember going down the next day, a couple of days later maybe, standing there on the side of the road, the bus coming, and I was determined that bus was going to see me. So I actually stepped up to the edge of the road, and the bus, little did I know, my mom had already called the bus company, so they were looking for me. The bus pulls up, stops, opens its doors. I start to get on the bus, and the lady says, "Hold it right there. What school are you going to?" I told her. She said, "That's not this bus. You don't ride this bus. Your bus comes in like another 5 minutes." I had missed the bus by just about 5 minutes. So I got back off the bus, waited in the dark, pretty embarrassed. And I made it through 7th grade, and then in 8th grade they had opened a new junior high, so I went to another new school in the 8th grade. In 10th grade we moved to Bennettsville, South Carolina, and I went to a private school where we had a graduating class of 24, as I recall. And then in the 11th grade we moved to Arkansas, and I went to another high school, but in that high school they had tier-leveled students. And so they put me in the middle level of students because they weren't sure that my private school in South Carolina measured up to the Arkansas standards. And so I spent a year in this middle level, 11th grade, and I got to know some people, made a few friends, not many, but a few, sort of more on the periphery of friends. And then in the 12th grade, my English teacher was kind enough to recommend that I go into the honors class. Now, the honors class was a group of kids. It was only about 30 kids in the whole school, and they had been together since pretty much kindergarten. And I had 2 cousins in there, so it wasn't like I didn't know anybody. But once I got moved up there my 12th grade year, all the people from the 11th grade stopped talking to me. And I lost those friendships. That we were done, because now I was one of those kids. So, you know, I had 2 schools in 7th grade, 8th and 9th grade, 10th grade, and basically 2 schools in 11th and 12th grade. And I have often described my life this way, because that outgoing kid from elementary school became a very withdrawn, non-active kid who stuffed his emotions with food, and I have been stuffing them ever since. But I have described my life as pretty much all of my life, at least up into my 40s, standing on the side of the road in the dark, watching the bus pass me by. I've been a loner. I became an introvert. I didn't like to be around people. I ate too much. I weigh too much. I'm not healthy. I'm not active. And it's something that stuck with me all that time. Now here's what because every once in a while, I relive these events. You know, I'm going to be, how old am I now? I'm going to be 65 next year. And still, I relive these events. And I wonder now, as an educator, as an educator who has been in it a while, I wonder, as I sat in those classrooms, what did my teachers see? Did they see me? Did they see the me that was too afraid to speak up a lot of times? Did they see me who was trying to hide behind academic success? Did they see the me that was constantly eating too much food? I don't know. If they did, nobody ever talked to me about it. And so my question to you, when you look at the kids in your classroom, when you look at the kids sitting in the seats of your room, who do you see? Do you know these kids? Do you know the struggles they're having outside of school? Think about it. We'll see you next week.